I think we can start now. First of all, I would like to welcome all of you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. People are on this call from Australia to the United States, Canada, and Palestine, of course, and other places. First of all, some housekeeping announcements. This briefing is being recorded. It will be shared only with those who register specifically or ask for it for their use. This is not a webinar that's open to everyone. So if you do not want your name to appear, you can change your name. There are 3 dots at the top of your screen, and you can just change your name or put an anonymous name. And if you don't want your picture to appear, obviously, you hit the video button so that your picture will not appear. This briefing is going to start with the attorney, Maher Hanna, who is the attorney for Halabi, who will bring us up to date. I assume all of you are familiar with the case of Mohammed Halabi from World Vision. Recently, there has been a decision that was made in his case, a verdict, no sentencing yet. Just for clarity, our office, the Kutab Khoury Hanna office, is in fact the attorney for World Vision. But Maher Hanna is specifically the attorney for Mr. Halabi, and this is particularly significant because there are many things that happened that Maher Hanna did not share with us as partners in the law firm because he was under specific direct orders and threat not to share them with anyone else. I'm sure he will be addressing that question as well. So we'll start with Maher Hanna bringing us up to date about the recent decision. There will be an opportunity for those of you who wish to ask a question, either by raising your hand or by putting it in the chat box, so that he will be able to answer your questions. And at the end, we are fortunate and blessed to have Khalil Halabi, the father of Muhammad, who has been an indefatigable proponent for his son, who has worked day and night to try and get him some measure of justice. He will be giving a word at the end to round it up and to thank all of you. So without further ado, I will now turn it over to Mr. Maher Hanna. Please unmute yourself, Maher, so that you can speak. Maher will speak in English, but if he needs to say something in Arabic or Hebrew, I will help facilitate with the translation. Mr. Maher Hanna.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you very much, and thank you all for joining this briefing. And in this opportunity, I would like to thank everyone who stands with and for Muhammad Halabi, justice for Muhammad Halabi, including Sabeel friends and every organization who supports the justice by supporting this case. In order to brief the point that this case reached, I have to go back to the first beginning when it started, and then I'll explain why I go exactly to that point. It started with investigation which is unhuman, breaching all the international regulations regarding Mohammed Halabi. Just one example, beating him and investigating him for a whole 5 days while not giving him a rest, just 6 hours rest in total. In Ramadan when he was fasting, and all of that happened, of course, under the very strict and very rush investigation. The community against torture in Israel found that all the allegations that Muhammad made against the investigation and the torture that he mentioned was found based. And nevertheless, the judge said that even with this accusations, even with these claims against the investigation, even with losing 40% of his hearing during this investigation and during this torture. It's not investigation, it's torture. Yet he said, the judge said, and I'm quoting, that it did not influence him because he did not admit in any way. So I'm raising these issues in court in vain because he did not admit under this torture. Why am I mentioning?
Let me clarify. He did not sign a confession under the torture, even though he had 6 hours of sleep in 5 days. Continue.
Not signed and not unsigned. You know, the Shabak, the security forces, usually don't make people sign like the police, but still, the Shabak did not say in any investigation that investigated Mohammed Halabi that he was confessed in front of any Shabak member. So I'm mentioning that because if we go from the first beginning to the end, as you all know, the judge say in his public short briefing that Mohammed Halabi was convicted under confession, based on his confession. When there was no confession, and he himself, the judge himself, said that even with all the torture that was Mohammed tortured, he did not confess.
Okay, hold on a second. Maher, let me clarify. The decision that was made about a week ago was a classified, 254 pages classified, but the judge released a brief summary of it, which was unclassified, in which he says, in which he refers continuously to the confession by Muhammad. Continue. Sorry, Maher.
Now, this contradiction between what said in the first beginning that Muhammad never confessed, with the last decision that claims that there's a confession, just
you froze, Maher Hanna. Maher. Well, until Maher returns, I should point out that the summary stated clearly that the heart and soul of this decision rests on the confession of Muhammad Halabi, which is really curious since there was no actual confession in the case. Maher?
Brother Jonathan, Maher left. I think he's probably going to try to reconnect.
Okay, so I can speak while he is trying to reconnect, because I got a copy of the unclassified summary of the verdict. A 23. There's Maher. Maher, please unmute yourself. Maher, unmute yourself.
Okay, yes. Sorry for this. I don't know why I went off.
That's okay. Continue.
Okay. What I was saying, that the restrictions in this case, especially against me of explaining the facts, are unprecedented, and the restrictions against me as a lawyer for Mohammed Halabi are also unprecedented. I'm just to clarify one thing. It's almost unbelievable. If
Well, it's good that I can fill in until Maher. Yalla Maher.
With a special computer that they bring in order to allow me. Do you hear me, Jonathan?
You're breaking up, Maher.
Okay. What I'm saying that the restrictions are unprecedented under the Israeli law. Actually, we didn't find such restrictions in any law, in any judicial system. If now in this moment I find some thoughts that might help Muhammad case, and I want to write it down, I'm not allowed to write it on my computer now in my office. I have to call the security forces to come to my office, to bring a special computer that they are bringing every time, in which they allow me to type in, and sit just in front of me, making sure that I'm not typing my thoughts in any other computer, and just write it there. The summaries that I'm writing, I myself writing, I'm not allowed to write it to myself. I'm not allowed to have a copy of it. I'm writing only on their computer. The notes of the sessions that I'm cross-examining the witnesses, I'm not allowed to have copy of it. They are only bringing it to me just to see it, with no ability to write notes or to copy anything. Muhammad's testimony himself in court is not allowed for me to have copy of it. The evidence, the so-called evidence, are not allowed for me. Partially are secret, and the other part that is not secret, I'm not allowed to have copy of it and to show it to my experts. I brought Israeli experts who are working with the Shabak and with the Mossad and with the FBI just to examine this evidence that they are supposedly presenting, but they did not let them to examine this evidence. They did not allow their experts to examine this evidence. Not only that, there are unprecedented decisions that made exceptions of laws, such as hearsay. For example, there's as any legal system, there are regulation of hearsay and any other regulation that make sure that the justice will be found, and there's a correct way to find, to seek and to find just in any case. They made new regulations, new decisions that were never made before, just to make Muhammad Halabi case and to restrict him of bringing the facts to the public. The only reason I have to emphasize this, I don't know, after all this case, I know nothing that I never knew before. The only secret in this case is the embarrassment of the Israeli judicial system. If you know what is in this case, you won't believe. Going as far as I can go, because as I told you, I'm prohibited of going deep in facts and explanations. I was threatened, by the way, in writing by the prosecution not to share the facts. I was not allowed to visit Gaza, for example, to interview witnesses or to see some issues there, because they think it can rescue the security of Israel. Anyway, to go deep as much as I can, I can point some points which make this decisions that was made by the judge is such ridiculous that unbelievable. One example that Muhammad was accused of pointing points in Erez checkpoint in 2010. We show the judge that according to the Israeli records themselves, in here in Palestine, to cross Erez checkpoint is not like going from one state to another in the United States. No, at all. It's very restricted. It's very hard. It's very well documented, and everyone who enters Erez checkpoint is known to the Israelis. His name is known, and there's records. Well, now we went back to these records. We asked these records and take it from the Israelis, and we show the Israelis that Muhammad never entered Erez checkpoint since 2006 until November 2011. So how come he pointed the points in Erez checkpoint in 2010? Of course, the judge just jumped on these facts and just did not deal with it. They accused Muhammad of bringing thousands, and I'm quoting, thousands of tons of iron through Kerem Shalom, Kerem Shalom. And Kerem Shalom, as most probably some of you know, is also well documented. So we dared the prosecution. We said, show us just one truck, 1 kilo of iron, which entered Kerem Shalom. And they never did. at the first beginning, they said, oh, we can show you. We will bring all the documents from Camp Shalom. And of course, there's no. So they did not find any because there's no. They accused Muhammad of diverting more money than World Vision has at all in Gaza. They accused Muhammad of diverting British money to build a military base in Gaza. We showed them that Britain never gave any money to World Vision in Gaza. But you know, we say in Arabic that they don't let facts confuse them. The facts don't matter. Just we have to convict him, so we're convicting him. This conviction has nothing to do with law, not with justice, not with facts, not with any legal system, especially for a state that claims that it's a democratic state and its legal system is a healthy legal system. I can assure you that no matter what they call this judicial system, which this decision is a kind, it's a shame for the Israeli system and shame for any judicial system, because there's no relation whatsoever between facts that proven and presented in court and the decision that was made, the conviction that was. Jonathan, I thought I took more than 5 minutes. If you want me to continue, I can continue.
It's very good.
Forever.
I think I'd like to take a few questions because what you say is so strange that people have the right to question it. I think if Mr. Ariqat has a question, please go ahead.
Yeah, I really do. Thank you, Maher, and thank you, Jonathan. This is really a crazy story, and I'm trying to grasp as much about it as possible. Now, he was taken 167 to 167 court sessions or hearings and so on, but no conviction. No, was he convicted? He was convicted.
He was convicted last week.
Last week, okay. So he was convicted last week, but he has not been sentenced, right?
Correct.
Not
right. He has not been sentenced. So I'm trying. You raise some issues that are really difficult to grasp, and at least in this country, judiciary process in this country, like you are not allowed to take notes. You're not allowed to take handwritten notes. You're not allowed to take them with you. You're not allowed to share to write about your conversations with him, right?
I'm allowed, but not on written notes and not on my computer.
Not written. You can only do this on their computer, right?
On their computer,
right?
Yes.
Yeah. And now, can you explain? I know that I don't command the whole issue of what happened with Muhammad, but he's accused of laundering money, right, for Hamas or whatever, bringing money in and out and so on. And he works for a Christian charity organization, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. So can you explain just a little bit, if you can, what the history, at what point he joined this organization and so on? Why was he targeted in your view? I mean, after spending so much time and so on. And, I'll stop here, but I have so many other questions, but I'll stop here.
Thank you very much for this important question, Mr. Said. But before that, you remind me one thing, and then I'll go back to your question. You remind me very important point that, after arresting Muhammad Halabi, the state of Israel went to World Vision offices and siege and took all the computers, all the information from World Vision offices regarding all the projects that were in Gaza. And guess what? Instead of investigating this information and knowing the facts out of this information, for example, what projects was done, what projects was they claiming that was diverted, what projects were not finished, instead of all of that, they admit in official way that
open court.
In court, and here I'm quoting again, that we did not have enough resources to investigate the information. They did not investigate until today. We don't know. Muhammad, the first reaction of Muhammad after he was convicted, he asked me, and this is ironic and this is very sad. He asked me that the judge said, what did I do? Because until today, we don't know which money was converted, from where, what project. They know all the projects. They know all the information. So which project? Not only that, I said, okay, I'll bring all the farmers to testify. I'll bring them to court to testify that they got everything they were promised in the plans. And then the state said, no need to bring any farmers. We don't claim that, we will not claim that you did not bring farmers, because we know that projects were done. So if projects were done, what exactly is accused of? It's like stealing money of bank. When the bank says that we counted all the money, we find no money missing, all the money in the bank. But still, he was convicted of stealing that bank. And this is the exact example that the judge said, not me. The judge said, "Oh, with all you all the time claim that you have all the audits and all the restrictions on your work in Gaza, preventing such diverting of materials and money. But exactly, the bank has all the restrictions and all the audits, and still people steal from banks. Yes, people steal from banks when the bank says that we lost money. In this case, the bank said we didn't lose money. They themselves don't say where the money, what money was missing from which bank. From which bank was the money missing? And they said, don't bring the farmers. We agree that the projects were done. And we did not investigate the case because we have no resources. Still, we convict him. Now, going back to your question, the big question is why they do that, why they did that. Muhammad was working in World Vision since 2005, but he was the head of World Vision operation in Gaza only in 2014 until 2016 when he was arrested. The answer of why did he do that, I'll not answer it myself, because I'm a Palestinian accused of having a position with Muhammad. But I refer to what?
That you are biased.
Yeah, that I'm biased. So I will refer to Ehud Barak. Ehud Barak in the previous election, he said that one of the things that Netanyahu is doing wrongly is attacking the NGOs in Gaza in order to put pressure on the people in Gaza, so they put pressure on Hamas. Netanyahu used the people, the poor people, the most poor people in Gaza, the most need for humanitarian work in Gaza. He used it as a human shield, not for defense but for attack. He used them. He used their need in order to put pressure on the government on Gaza in order to attack Hamas. So Ehud Barak refers to that, not only me. Ehud Barak is not biased for Palestinians or accused for being Palestinian, not that I know of. He was the Prime Minister of Israel and the Security Minister of Israel. So they just attacking, and you know what they did? They managed to do that, because since 2016, all the NGOs, all the humanitarian work in Gaza stepped back, and there's no humanitarian, despite all the needs that are really important in Gaza.
Maher Hanna, there's a number of questions in the chat box. One of them is, can you make the summary available? I mean, I read it in Hebrew. Can we make it available in English for those who need it?
We will work to translate it to English and send it to you to make it available for everyone.
Okay, everybody who is registered on this call or who was registered for this will be getting a copy of the summary in English. Another question here is, when was he arrested? He was arrested in 2016.
In June 15, 2016.
June 15. Nina Keller said, has any organization been aware of all this false information that the Israeli judicial system is claiming? And what can we, Palestinians and Americans, do to reveal the truth?
we explained it to everyone who we talked to, and everyone who was in court got also an explanation for that. But I depend on you in this matter to just to spread it around and to share it with everyone. That the Israelis are giving a false information, and they are preventing us by threatening us of revealing what the truth information are. But despite that, just the Israelis say that Muhammad Halabi diverted iron and money. Just show us from where. From where? Just explain us how he got this money.
Okay. There's a question from Joanne Musa. What is the appeal process in this legal context?
Unfortunately, the appeal process is started only after the sentence. So we have to wait until the sentence, and just after that we can appeal to the Supreme Court. We, despite our disappointment of the decision, we still had no choice but to believe that the Supreme Court will be embarrassed to accept such thing, because it will also infect the whole judicial system. If you keep making new rules and new regulations and new restrictions, it will not stop with Muhammad Halabi case. It will continue to any other case.
Okay.
The question is how many. The question, Muhammad Halabi is not a humanitarian hero only, but a hero as in a personal level. As I told you, someone who spent 5 whole days with no rest, 6 hours rest, and fasting in Ramadan. It's unbelievable. But Muhammad stopped against all the plea bargain and refused all the plea bargain, in which allow him now to be home. In order to and he always all the time he said, I will not admit of things that never happened. I will not admit of things that humanitarians did against law when humanitarians did not. He protects all the humanitarian work in Gaza. The only question is how many Muhammad Halabi are in prison and don't have such powers and such ability to stand and to say the truth and to rescue years and years in prison, not seeing their sons and their children, their daughter growing up. He paid a very high price for the sake of the humanitarian work in Gaza. The question is how many Muhammad Halabi are there who are willing to pay such price? It shocked the Israeli system. They made, as I told you, they made a section in order to prevent him of revealing the truth. It shocked them. They thought that he will.
Yeah, this is a very.
He and continued until the end. And as far as I know, despite the disappointing judgment that was made, he's still in his principle and in his way to continue fighting until the end.
This is a very important point. Most cases in military courts, 98% or more, end with a plea bargain because you plead and then you know how much you stay in jail and then you leave. Halabi had a whole number of opportunities. Again and again, they offered to him to plead guilty and basically go home because you've been in long enough. And by refusing to plead guilty, he's forcing them to show what they have, and they have nothing. That is why they kept him for 6 years. That is why it took so many hearings to try and get him convicted and then sentenced.
Now, one accusation that the judge mentioned in his verdict, that the trial took so long because the defense presented so many witnesses. Now, the prosecution did not present any witness, any objective witness. They did not bring any witness because they did not investigate the case. So we have to bring the witnesses that say that we work there, we know the projects, we work with this man, we know the money that was spent in the projects. We ourselves were there, and we have to bring them to court. And they accuse us. Muhammad Halabi now is paying price for trying to prove his innocent above reasonable doubt.
Yes,
It's unbelievable.
I thought formally the standard is that the burden of proof is on the prosecution to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Isn't that
Not
the
in this
case in
case.
Israel?
Not in this case. Not in this case. He proved that he is innocent above any reasonable doubt, and still it's not enough for them. If we want to summarize the verdict said in one sentence that despite the fact that the prosecution did not prove anything, yet it could happen. Now he is convicted because it could happen. Nobody knows how it happened, but the judge said, yes, it could happen. Some prisoners went out of prisons. Some banks are stolen. So it could happen in everywhere. Why not in World Vision?
Yes, the summary says that all the evidence that you've stated that there are procedures and that would have prevented anything is irrelevant because some prisoners escape from prison despite
Yes.
all
Yes.
the restrictions there are. The Maginot Line, he mentioned the Maginot Line was breached. So it means that no matter how carefully you try to create procedures to prevent embezzlement or diversion of funds, maybe it can happen, and therefore
Yeah, but
it is possible.
but he didn't argue. He didn't argue the facts. He didn't show why it couldn't. Why it can be happen and how. Because we present all the restrictions, all the measure الاحترازات, all
the procedures that were created by World Vision to prevent the diversion of funds.
Yeah, but he didn't show how these procedures were breached. He said it might be breached. Yeah, it might be breached as everything might be. But how? How can you convict somebody of it might be?
Okay, here's another question. Can the court sentence Halabi to time served? Is it possible?
Yeah, it is possible. We will aim for that, but unfortunately, being realistic, they will add something just to show that he's very, very dangerous person. As they all the time say, that he's a very dangerous person. I don't know of what, but they all the time accuse him that he's a very dangerous person. No. And by the way, one of the points that work against Muhammad, that he's very clever. The judge said everyone who works with him say that he's clever. So probably clever guy can find a way to to divert without
the restrictions.
He's convicted because he's clever.
Okay. There's a question from Shireen. Has there been any threats or accusation against you, Maher Hanna, as his lawyer?
Yes, directly and formally in writing. They sent me a letter saying that if I talk about the so-called secret evidence, I will be charged and I will be punished by law. And they, of course, they refer to the specific law as if I don't know which law is in the criminal code that shows that if I breach such security, I will be charged. Just one thing, as you all know, that Muhammad at the beginning was charged with khiyana, Jonathan, with
treason. One of the counts against him was treason against the state of Israel.
Yeah. Now, treason was not in the first beginning. It was not in the first charge against Muhammad Halabi. They just added it later after starting hearing the evidence, just in order to give them tools that this charge allows them in order to restrict the court and to restrict the information.
Let me explain that. If somebody is charged with treason, the court can add additional levels of secrecy and restrictions on the lawyers which don't exist in normal cases. So they did add that charge of treason. They used all these tools, and in the end, they dropped that charge at the end, and they did not convict him of treason, but they convicted him of everything else in the charge sheet. Maher, there's a question here. What is World Vision doing?
Okay, World Vision is doing its best. That's all I can say in this point, in order to stand with Muhammad Halabi with just because they know the truth. They are the bank who counted their money and found no missing money from the bank. They know the truth. They know that all the projects were done, all the regulations were made. No iron. They did not bring any iron to Gaza. So how can Muhammad divert iron? They know that they did not bring the sum of money that they claim that Muhammad diverted, but even less than half of it. And they know where the money spent to was, and they have all the information, all the information explains everything. The problem that as I told you, the state of Israel said that they have no enough resources to investigate this information that were presented to them. They know the information.
In other words, they have all the records, they have all the computers, they know all the projects, but they just didn't bother looking through them to provide evidence against Halabi. Okay, there's a question. How is Muhammad doing? How is he doing these days?
He is stronger than every man in his position can be. I mean, sometimes I myself don't believe how strong and how hero this person is. During writing my summary, I tried to stay awake for a few days just to feel what person can feel when he awake for a few days. And I tried to stay awake for 5 days as Muhammad did. In the third day, I just collapsed. I start reading words without knowing the whole sentence means. I mean, I don't believe Muhammad is unique, and he make us proud that such Palestinian heroes are here in Palestine, and especially in Gaza, making standing for the truth and standing for the justice. For myself, he made me proud, very proud. That for me, it wasn't the case of the state of Israel against Muhammad Halabi. It was the case of Muhammad Halabi versus the state of Israel, and he won that case. And he showed that the judicial system is an apartheid judicial system, and the Palestinians are very they are very intelligent, very sophisticated, and they know exactly the work that should be done, not like the prosecution and the judge that accused him.
Okay, maybe this is a good time to hear a few.
Jonathan, it is very ironic that against all the professionals who testify in favor of justice, in favor of Muhammad, and explain every point that happened in Gaza, the only witness that they had, and this I can say, is a witness who was convicted in the past of bringing false information to a court. While he was convicted in belonging to terror organization, and was convicted of bringing false information. This guy, there's no dispute between me and the prosecution that he lied in court. There's no disputation. But even that, the court ignored that fact, and based on his, despite the lie that he lies, despite the fact that he's convicted criminal of bringing false information to security forces in the past.
Maybe this is a good time to hear a few words from Muhammad's father, Mr. Khalil Halabi. If you unmute yourself, you have a few minutes to address the different people on this school. Unmute yourself. Yes, تفضل.
شكرا جوناثان. يعني أولا أنا أشكر كل المؤسسات التي تشارك في هذا اللقاء، وأنا أرجو أن تقوم بالترجمة لو سمحت أستاذ جوناثان.
I will translate for you. He starts by thanking all the organizations and individuals who are supporting his son.
وأشكرك يعني دكتور جوناثان وكل العاملين معك وكل المشاركين أشكرهم على هذا اللقاء، كما وأشكر يعني المحامي ماهر حنا، يعني هذا الرجل الذي عمل 6 سنوات بكل قوة واقتدار، لكن يعني كما يعرف الجميع أن إسرائيل يعني مصممة على أشياء حتى تحفظ ماء وجهها في هذه القضية.
He also thanks Mr. Maher Hanna, who has worked very hard for 6 years. And he says the only explanation he has is that Israel wants to avoid the clear embarrassment it has in this case.
أنا سأختصر يعني عن محمد. محمد كان من أوائل قطاع غزة في التعليم.
For my son, he was one of the best in Gaza during his education.
حصل على منحة الماجستير من الرئيس ياسر عرفات عندما جاءت السلطة.
He got a special scholarship from Yasser Arafat to do his master's degree when the Palestinian Authority was created.
رشحته الأمم المتحدة كبطل للعمل الإنساني سنة 2014.
In 2014, he was declared by the United Nations to be to get a Humanitarian of the Year award.
أنا بعتقد أن محاكمة محمد الآن والتي عقدت هي والاتهامات هي محاكمة انتقامية لأنه لم يقبل بأي صفقة عرضت عليه.
My belief is that his trial and the accusations against him are precisely a way of making revenge against him for refusing to cooperate and accept a deal with them.
لا يعقل أن تكون عدد المحاكمات 170 محاكمة، أطول محاكمة في التاريخ. لماذا؟ السؤال لماذا أطول محاكمة؟
It makes no sense that there are 170 court hearings. What for? Why do they need 170 court hearings?
هم حاولوا الضغط عليه والضغط على المحامي ليضغط على محمد للقبول بالصفقة، ولكن محمد مصمم ألا يعترف على أي شيء لم يفعله.
They pressured him and they pressured the attorney to pressure him to accept any kind of deal, but he insisted that he did nothing wrong.
أنا وجهت يعني كثير من الرسائل في كتاباتي للإسرائيليين. أنتم جمعتم كل ملفات المؤسسة عند اعتقال محمد وكل الكمبيوترات من المكاتب. هل وجدتم دليل على محمد؟ إذا وجدتم دليل أخرجوه للعلن. لماذا تقولوا ملف سري وملف غير سري؟ أخرجوا إذا وجدتم دليل، وأنا أعتقد أنهم لم يجدوا أي دليل ضد محمد.
I wrote a number of letters and addressed the Israeli public as well as the Israeli authorities that all the documents are in your possession. Look through them, find out where the diversion is. If you have any evidence against him, bring it up. Why should it be secret? What is secret about it? You have the documents, and they are documents of a development organization. The only thing I can conclude is you don't have any reason, you don't have any evidence.
أنا أعرف أثناء التحقيق مع أي معتقل فلسطيني هم يسجلوا ويصوروا التحقيق. أخرجوا التصوير للعلن. إذا كان محمد اعترف على شيء أخرجوه للعلن، ولكن أن تظل تحت غطاء ملف سري هذا تكون المحاكمات غير عادلة وغير قانونية لمحمد وكل الأسرى بتعرضوا لنفس الموقف.
We know that Israel usually records and even videotapes interrogation sessions. If he had ever confessed during interrogation, bring up his confession. Let us hear what he confessed to. Why are you talking about a secret file? What reason is there for secrecy? If he has confessed, show us what he confessed and what he said.
في المحاكمة السابقة أنا قرأت أن القاضي يقول أنني لم أطلع على التقرير الأوديت اللي شكلته أستراليا ومؤسسة الرؤية العالمية. لماذا لم يطلع؟ لماذا لم يطلع على الحقائق في هذا التقرير؟ أود أن أوضح للجميع أن في هذا التقرير، وهم جمعوا كل البريد الإلكتروني في المؤسسة وللمؤسسة خلال الفترات السابقة، وجدوا أن محمد ينصح المؤسسة بعدم التعامل مع بعض الجهات حتى لا يؤثر على عمل المؤسسة. لماذا لم يطلعوا على هذا؟
The judge himself said in one of the hearings that he did not look at the audit that the Australian government conducted, which showed that there was no money diverted or stolen. Why did the judge not listen to what was there? Why did he not? They have all the emails of the institutions. They know that Muhammad himself advised World Vision not to deal with certain people in order to avoid any suspicion that they are dealing with Hamas. He went out of his way to avoid any such complications for World Vision. Why did not the judge address and see the evidence that was already with him?
كل الشهود الذين حضروا إلى المحكمة هم موظفين دوليين وليسوا عرب، حتى لا يقال إنهم من حاجة. يعني منهم أمريكان، منهم ألمان، ومنهم من أستراليين، ومنهم من نيوزيلندا. جميعهم شهدوا لعمل محمد في داخل المؤسسة. أما هم أحضروا شاهد له سجل جنائي اعتمدوا عليه، يعني أحضروا هذا الشاهد إلى المحكمة وله سجل جنائي وقضية جنائية. يعني لم يكترثوا في كل الشهود الانترناشونال هذول الشهود، وبس بيفكروا في هذا الشاهد اللي له سوابق جنائية.
The witnesses that World Vision brought to the trial were all international civil servants from different countries, New Zealand, Australia, the US, and other places, who all testified professionally and correctly. And the judge totally ignored all their testimonies and stuck with the testimony of a single person who was a convicted perjurer who had purged himself as being the support for the conviction.
أنا كوالد محمد وأعرف محمد وعمله. محمد أيديولوجيا يختلف عن أيديولوجية حماس اختلاف كامل. كيف يتفق مع حماس في هذه القضية؟
As his father, I can tell you that his ideology and his political views are the opposite of the views of Hamas. How can he be ideologically opposed to Hamas and on their thoughts and on their beliefs, and then cooperate with them and give them money and steal and everything else? It just doesn't make sense.
هذه الأشياء التي أوضحها الأستاذ ماهر هي دليل على أن الادعاءات باطلة. يعني أوضحها الأستاذ ماهر من خلال حديثه، وكل هذه الادعاءات اللي ادعوها والاتهامات هي اتهامات باطلة. تعلم تعلم أيها الإخوة أن محمد كان أحد أعضاء وفد ذهب للقاهرة وقابل وزير الخارجية المصري، وكان للأسف مؤيد للاتفاق المصري الإسرائيلي. يعني أنا مش فاهم كيف بده يصير بيتجه ناحية حماس. هو مؤيد لكم، مؤيد للسلام.
He is mentioning that Muhammad even joined a delegation that went to Egypt to support the Egyptian-Israeli treaty. So how can he possibly work with Hamas when he is opposed to their ideology? Ustaz Khalil,
أنا بس بدي أحكي لك جملة واحدة.
in here.
جملة واحدة كان محمد يرددها لي. يعني أنا أعرف عمل محمد إنساني. والله حكى لي في بيتي هذا، قال لي والله لو أجد عائلة إسرائيلية محتاجة لسعت.
I remember my son once telling me, and I will finish with this. He says, if I find an Israeli family in need, I will definitely help them. My work is humanitarian. I'm supposed to help those who are in need, even if they are Israeli. شكرا
أنا
سيد خليل.
كل الإخوة عشانكم أنتم في أمريكا، أنا يعني بطلب منهم إذا يعني أحد من الإخوان بيبعت لي إيميل لوزير الخارجية الأمريكي دايركت، أنا بدي أتفاهم، أنا بدي أبعت له، أنا بعت لكل قادة العالم بس إلى الخارجية الأمريكية، وأنا رحبت بزيارة بايدن، عسى أن يقابلني وأتحدث له أمام الإسرائيليين عن هذه القضية.
He has a final request. If any of you know the address of the US State Department or the Secretary of State Blinken, I have written, he says, to all the world leaders. I want to also write to the American leaders. If any of you know his address, send it to me, because I want to bring this case to their attention. It's a very good case. Thank you very much. If there are any final questions, I want to be respectful of your time and finish exactly. If there are any questions, raise your hand or electronically. There was one question, I'm sorry, in the chat box for Mr. Hanna, Maher Hanna, or anybody else. How does this fit in with Israel's behavior towards the 6 organizations like Al-Haq, Al-Damir, which have been declared to be terrorist organization? Does this relate at all to that case or not? Maher.
Yes, I think hearing secret evidence now make me feel sick. I mean, just knowing that they depend on secret evidence regarding these 6 organizations, I know what the meaning of secret evidence in Halabi case.
Yeah.
Just
Very
before
good.
before I finish, I want to refer to one thing that Abu Muhammad mentioned, and just to make it clearer, World Vision never used dual-use materials in Gaza. They never used it. And in one point, they suggested that we
never used what?
Dual-use materials.
Dual-use materials like iron and cement, yeah.
Yeah, in one point, they said that we might need dual-use for our projects. And guess who refused to bring any dual-use materials to Gaza? Muhammad. And he said, if you bring it to here, you will never know how it will be caught by wrong hands, and it will be diverted by force to wrong hand, and it will be taken by wrong hands. He said that I will not allow dual-use materials to come to projects of World Vision. In one point, they suggested to bring cash to Gaza instead of bringing food and blankets. And Muhammad said, no, it's risky in Gaza. You never know whose hands will get it. Bring blankets to give it to the right people. Muhammad Halabi is an example for a humanitarian who made sure that all the money that come to Gaza go to the right target and to the people who are in need. And despite that they know it, despite that they convicted him, unfortunately.
Okay, that's a very good point. He has been very careful and he has tried to avoid dual-use materials, and still he was convicted. I want to thank everybody who has participated in this, and I hope you will continue your advocacy. FOSNA, Friends of Sabeel, has a campaign for justice for Halabi, and we got thousands of people to sign a petition on his behalf. We will keep you updated as FOSNA, and we hope to continue. Someday, maybe we will get justice for Muhammad Halabi. And thanks to all of you for attending this.
Dr. Jonathan, I want to talk with Dr. سعيدة عرقات. يعني أنا بطلب من الدكتور سعيدة عرقات أن يكتب في هذا الموضوع للشعب الأمريكي. أنتم في أمريكا تؤثرون، اكتبوا عن هذه القضية. هذه قضية إنسانية، واحنا يعني تحت ضغط من يعني هم عاملين فوق، يعني بيعملوا فوق القانون الإنساني. حديثكم هو يغير مجريات هذه الأمور للشعب الأمريكي وللساسة الأمريكيين من خلال الصحف الأمريكية. أنا برجوكم وأرجو أن يعني توصلوا هذه الرسالة إلى كل إخواننا في أمريكا الذين يعيشون في أمريكا.
He is addressing himself to Saeed Ariqat as well as any other journalists who are on this call to please talk about it, and especially in the United States, because people need to know about this.
بوعدك لو سمحت جوناثان، بوعدك أخ خليل، بوعدك أنه أنا سأطرح هذا السؤال في المؤتمرات الصحفية في وزارة الخارجية. سأرسل لك العنوان البريدي لوزارة الخارجية ولقسم الشرق الأدنى كي ترسل رسالتك بشكل خاص. أوعدك بذلك، وإن شاء الله نستمر في الدفع من أجل العدالة لمحمد.
أشكرك جدا. والبريد الإلكتروني مع الدكتور جوناثان ممكن يعطيك إياه البريد. بارك الله فيك. شكرا جزيلا.
Thank you everybody, and thank you for attending this special briefing. We will record it and we will send a copy of the recording to everybody who is here, as well as those who registered but were not able to attend. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Goodbye. Thank you, Maher.
شكرا.